Jacob, it stinks so bad like marijuana.
Greetings, people of Earth and beyond. My name is Chris. Welcome back again to God and Ganja. It's still the same day for me. That's why I still have the same shirt on. But the information is prevalent nonetheless. Maybe I should just change my shirt and not even tell you. But I got another video. This one's called, Is Marijuana Okay for Christians? The Gospel Coalition. It was made 5 years ago, and I just wanted to add some comments. I have seen it already. It's something that I kind of remember, but I haven't seen like maybe a year or two now.
When it comes to marijuana, I think that there's a distinction, I'd say, between like a prohibition category and a wisdom category. And so I don't think Scripture has like an explicit prohibition that says, hey, you just can't. You know, like maybe in the day when it was illegal in many states and, we want to obey the laws of the land. But now that that's gone, I don't think it falls into like an explicit biblical prohibition. And so I do think there's kind of a biblical freedom at one level, that we don't want to set up a law or a rule that Scripture doesn't itself place. And yet I do think the question in my mind comes to
all things are lawful, but not all things edify. All things are positive, but I will not be brought under the control of any. Something like that. I'll find it because I didn't say it right. But I think that's kind of where he's going with that. The legalities does change the way, like if I do something illegal, it's different than if I do something that's not illegal. If the state you live in will put you in prison for it, maybe you shouldn't do it. But if there's no reason to be put in prison in the first place, maybe we should just rewrite that issue.
Category of wisdom, is it, even if it's permissible to use it, is it wise to use it? And
I like this
personally and pastorally, I would have some big reservations and would argue that I think it's not wise. Some of those would be, people often make the comparison to it being like alcohol. We see that there are appropriate uses of alcohol in Scripture and all.
Whoa, what did he just say? There are appropriate uses of alcohol? No, if you acted the way people act about weed, about alcohol, people would just call you crazy. They're like, you're being legalist. I don't know if either one of them have smoked. I would understand if they never have, and they've only met people who almost misused or used it for this inebriation effect, not for a medicinal effect, and not for a basic recreational effect, the same way you go play baseball or something. You do things for recreation, a pastime, so to speak. You have a glass of wine with dinner. Maybe you have a joint before you go to bed. They should be comparable. I don't know why they're not. I would assume it's because they haven't done it or haven't done it after they became Christian. I've been a Christian since I was young. I didn't do it up until I was 21. Once I turned 21, I started looking into it. I got more information. I tried it and I found some benefits for me. That doesn't mean you're going to have the same experience. I just want to share my experience because I feel like it's in this category of wisdom to understand how it affects people and how there are positive effects and beneficial effects.
I do think there's some important differences and distinctions. One of those would be, I think it's a lot harder to use weed to kind of toke up and not get the equivalent of what with alcohol would be intoxicated, right? It seems like it's a very low.
It's true for non-frequent users. So the more you use it, you build up a tolerance. So somebody who has been drinking since 14 and they're 30 now, they're going to have a different tolerance than somebody who's 21 in Vegas for the first time. You know what I mean? It's just going to affect you differently. So if they've tried it and they didn't do it consistently, what I believe is they would feel the effects faster on less of an amount. But that amount doesn't sustain you to feel those effects. There are certain effects that aren't inebriating and there's certain effects that are inebriating, but you don't always get to that level, especially depending on the amount. So if you use this amount, you always stay at this level, even though if somebody else who's never smoked uses this amount, they actually get to this level faster because of the tolerance.
To reach that level of intoxication with weed. Likewise, I think, I don't know for every individual, but it does seem like kind of much of in our culture, the use of weed and marijuana is geared towards kind of disconnecting and disengaging from life and from people.
Is culture the standard? Because if it's not, than comparing culture to Christians who do use it. It's not necessarily comparable unless you're saying that whatever culture says is the standard. But culture says that like monogamy is boring. Do we agree? You know what I mean? We don't always agree with culture. So just because culturally it's like a party drug, it's like a fun thing to do, doesn't mean everybody who does it uses it like that.
Scripture, when it's used appropriately in moderation, all that part of the goal is kind of community and celebration and themes of bringing people together to celebrate what God's done, to celebrate the life that He's given and all.
Can you not celebrate with weed? Can you not have like a weed party? Can you not have a celebration? I don't know. I feel like you can use it to celebrate the same way you would toast a glass, you know? And it is like a community thing, you know? I have had some really great conversations with some good friends while I was high and while I was using it. And I say high because he compares it to the second you use it, it's the second you're high. And it's like, okay, the second you drink it, it's the second you're drunk. It's like, no, there's a difference. It's like, okay, well then either you haven't used it enough to understand the difference, or you're purposefully creating a negative view of one but not the same on the other. Because alcohol has ruined a lot of people's lives. That's why he's saying moderation and celebration. He's not saying everybody should just be a drunk. Everybody should have as much alcohol as they feel they need. He's saying there's value to it beyond what can be misused by it.
And yet, in contrast to that, marijuana seems to have kind of an individualistic bent that pulls you away from people, pulls you within yourself, causes you to become more disengaged, not only from people.
If alcohol makes you less, if it takes away your inhibitions, is that you becoming more of who you actually are? Or is it you suppressing your normal reasoning to do things that you normally wouldn't do? I don't believe marijuana has that effect, at least not the amount that I use. I think it can have negative effects. It could have side effects and you could become dependent on it, but you're not always dependent on it. And if you can like, it's non-addictive, but it's like coffee. You know, I don't know if we would say caffeine is an addiction thing, if people have a caffeine addiction. But if you can't live without it, that's when it becomes an issue, right? That's when you're dependent. If you're not going to God with it, then it may have become an idol in your life. So you got to be careful of it. But alcohol can definitely also become an idol.
Also kind of from
I don't know, he doesn't seem as worried about it.
One of my best friends growing up began, smoking weed more in high school. And over the course of about 3 years, I saw him just fully disconnect and unplug from relationships and activities. And we used to surf together and write music together and go on adventures together and go outdoors. And gradually, all those things started slipping away. And he just wanted to sit in his room all day and smoke out. And I'm not saying that that's everyone, but I do think there's kind of a trajectory in that kind of going inward direction.
So if the effect is negative, then it's negative. But if the effect isn't negative, is it still? Like he's using a personal experience to defend like a public view or how he thinks other people should see things because this is how he's seeing things. I don't know. That seems a little backward.
Is a warning sign, kind of would suggest kind of an unwise use there. And finally, I do think even just practically the use of marijuana being linked over time to mental health disorders and things of that nature. And I think we want to be of sound mind long-term to be able, as much as we can, to be able to care for our families, our communities, our churches, our friends, and not do things that could jeopardize or militate against us being able to be present to love and to serve as Christ would have us in those ways.
It was almost like a politically correct answer. I get what he's saying about the mental health issue. Once it becomes a dependency, you can get like mentally attached to it too. So it's not just that your body craves it, but your mind tells you you can't survive without it, or like you need it. Is it possible to get mental health issues from other consistent uses of other things? Do you condemn those things the same way? If caffeine gave you Alzheimer's, would you tell people never to go to Starbucks? Would you take the coffee shop out of the church? Have you ever seen that? Churches with coffee shops in?
Yeah, that's great. I also would put it in the category of wisdom. I could never, as a pastor, say to one of the members of my congregation, yeah, feel free to enjoy marijuana recreationally, just because I think I also feel like you really can't have sound mind when you're high. I think a lot of people.
Okay, I would love to sit in front of them and use it in front of them and have them tell me when they think my mind is no longer sound. I think there is a point, but I think they would be surprised at how much it takes to get to that point, which would argue that it's similar to alcohol. It's not similar to heavier substances.
Give you this false idea that, there's a functional high, and it just kind of, keys you out and you're okay. But I just I've never experienced that personally.
Is it because he didn't want to? He didn't know it was possible? Or because it doesn't exist?
And so, before I was a Christian, I smoked marijuana to, like you said, disengage from both people and issues.
But is it the way you're using it, or is it what you're using?
So I would actually ask people in my congregation, what is the reason for the desire to unhinge from community and unhinge from reality, and then begin to ask.
See, I don't think it has that effect. It's not LSD or acid. It's not affecting your physical, what you see and how you see it. It's not making you trip out. It's not DMT. I don't think it does that for everybody. I think there's more people who get together because of it than it does separate people. It can cause people to not hang out with certain types of people, especially people within the church who are probably going to judge you for it. But I don't think it does that every time. I think it's kind of weird that both of them are arguing that. See, because if it did it for them, or for him specifically, it makes sense why he understands it that way, but you can't say, this is what happened to me, so this must be what's happening to you. What if I told you something different was happening? What if I told you I was still functioning? How do you deny that?
More deeper and significant questions like, where does this desire come from? What are you experiencing in your life that is causing for you to want to escape? I mean, it's the same question you would ask somebody who consistently would be, intoxicated. What is it that you are running from? What is it that you are escaping? I think the challenge with marijuana is it's kind of like a one hit and done. And so you're immediately in that place of intoxication.
It just depends on how much you've used it, because there's people who buy extra because they don't get that same feeling as when they first started. But what I'm saying is, if he started it and stopped it after realizing he was isolating himself, he may have never gotten to the point where he figured out dosage almost.
So I also would put it in the category of wisdom. I mean, there's some unique challenges medicinally. Some people use it for medicinal purposes. And that I would really have to flesh that out with a member of my congregation. But in the category of recreational, I couldn't in good conscience tell them to partake in marijuana recreationally.
All right. Final thoughts. He couldn't in good conscience say that so he said he would ask them, well, why? Why do you want to interact with it? I wonder what he would say about Charlotte Figge and her use of the plant and her need for the plant to become more accessible. I agree that it's wisdom, but even the fear of the Lord is wisdom. So are you fearing the Lord or are you fearing the plant? Which one's more wise? I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe they could learn some things from what I'm talking about. I don't know. They'll probably never see this. This was made how long ago? Did I say 5 years ago? 2019. So things were a little different. But yeah. So that's the Gospel Coalition. Those are my little thoughts. That's my rant. This has been another TED Talk. Anyways, that's it. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you have a good day. See you later.